Hello and welcome to Reaction Shots for November 2017. We are talking about a favorite genre of films of mine, mockumentaries. I know, Brandon, you like mockumentaries as well.
Very, very much so.
I'm joined by Michael Huber, co-host extraordinaire.
I have seen one mockumentary, and it was this morning. You haven't seen any of these other ones? Zero.
Well, this will be an interesting...
Zero.
You'll be the lens through which...
You know what's funny?
The lens.
You're the audience analog for this episode.
But that really shows like how much I love mockumentaries, because I will get Huber level infatuated with you catching up. Like you need to see Spinal Tap, dude. Like you need to see. You need to see Spinal Tap.
Throughout the episode, just everything we talk about will be like, Huber.
I mean, it might not, you know, this industry's learned so much from Spinal Tap. Like a lot of these things have been kind of like recreating that, I think, like in so many years since. So it might not hold up because you've seen possibly trailers for films or similar stuff that's as funny. But it's the OG. It's so good.
Well, apparently the Ruddles came before that, but
it's not that. I don't. But I don't know my
that
film
was
history
very
exactly.
specifically Beatles. But anyway, we'll get into that. First off, let's talk about what we've liked recently. Huber, what do you got?
Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok. This is an appropriate movie, actually, because the director of the assignment film, Taika Waititi, I believe that's how you say his name, directed Thor Ragnarok.
Yep.
And is the voice of that rock being whose name I'm...
Korg.
Yeah. Which, you know, synth company, so that's cool.
Are we spoiling? Are we spoiling Thor here?
This isn't a spoiler mode, so let's not spoil it. But I haven't seen Thor. Yeah, so let's not ruin it for John. But I would just say that it's
not specific.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
Delightful, entertained. The entire movie. It was just pure fun. You know, to simplify everything, the movie was just fun. Sitting in the theater. Big fat smile on my face from ear to ear the entire time.
Yeah.
Couple moments where I was like shocked. Couple moments where I was emotional. Just hit all the beats. Unbelievable movie.
Yeah. I second everything you just said. There were so many moments where like the people I was seeing it with would look at each other and just be like, not saying it, but it would just be like, what is this movie? Like, what are they like? What? I can't believe they just said that or just did that, or like. I love how it doesn't take itself too seriously, but also still hits those emotional beats.
Yeah, and a really good example of how you can exist in the MCU but also stand on your own.
Yeah.
It carried everything over from, you know, the previous films, like Hulk's character and Thor. So we got that progression, you know, his relationship with Loki, all the family stuff with Odin. That's all there. But the movie stands on its own. Like, you don't need any of that. So.
I mean, I haven't seen any of the other Thor movies. Mm-hmm. I've seen the Avengers and the Captain Americas and what have you, but I didn't see the other two Thors, and I followed this one just fine.
Yeah.
It was great. We were talking about this the other day, about how trailers keep spoiling, like, shocking twist surprise characters. Mm-hmm. I really wish... And this was in a trailer, so I'm not, like, re-spoiling it.
He's on the poster.
He's on the
Hulk
poster,
is
but,
in the
like,
movie.
I wish I didn't know Hulk was going to be in the movie.
Yeah. Because that moment, that like, I remember that trailer hitting.
Yeah. And it was hilarious.
You know, my friend from work was like trending on Twitter. Yeah, you know what I mean? That was like the biggest thing. And
it's such a funny line.
If you had saved that moment in the movie, like...
Well, Thor saying yes is like its own meme now. Like, I mean, that's a great thing to use for anybody to be excited about anything.
And you have to wonder, like... Because I think the movie's doing very well.
Very well.
And you have to wonder, I mean, I think that trailer did do wonders for this movie, because that's what made me excited for the movie.
Yeah.
So it's the cart before the horse, like, who knows, chicken and the egg, apple.
And Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie is goat.
Oh, yeah.
Like, unreal.
And can we talk about Kate Blanchett?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh!
I'll talk about Kate Blanchett anytime you want.
She's amazing.
Can we talk about Jeff Goldblum talking about Kate Blanchett?
God. Jeff Goldblum. This movie, everyone in it is just fun to watch.
Yep. It's so good.
Kate Blanchett could do no wrong. I mean,
she actually can't. I think.
Seeing her have fun like that, it's so great. I think that's like
so intense in it.
I think that's one of my favorite things about the MCU at large, is just seeing these people just come in and just nerd out completely.
Oh, yeah.
You know, see people that do stuff that's typically kind of more like hoity-toity or dramatic or just kind of on a like comic books, nay.
Yeah.
And come in like, yeah, sure, I'll play Doctor Strange. Let's do it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I think that's something that the MCU right now is doing really well at, because with the DC movies and with like a few of the older Marvel movies, you had kind of that moment where you're like, ooh, that's the movie you're doing now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess your career is,
Oh yeah.
you can't
Like,
they
you're
can't
in a
all be
superhero
winners. Like,
movie?
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But now it feels like it's not a hit to your reputation.
Oh,
it's like
A-list.
I just wanted to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think like if Robert Downey Jr. had something to do with that. I don't know.
Dude,
who knows?
like Iron Man's success
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
You got Jeff Bridges in there, and,
Yeah.
and Robert Downey, of course.
Yeah.
Like that
I don't
blew
know.
it up.
It's cool. It's fun. We'll see if Justice
neat
League
that
is
MCU
tolerable.
is so wide. Ooh, that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh, boy.
It's neat that the MCU is so wide that they can realize, like, okay, we got Punisher coming up. Obviously, that needs to be dramatic. We got Black Panther coming up. That probably shouldn't be a comedy. And so they can be like, okay, let's just make Thor like the comedy.
Right.
And so we know that, like, we can have a different temperament with these different films, and it can all kind of blend together.
I can't
Whereas
believe how
Justice
funny it was.
League, we're not getting a Flash movie, so it's like
Right.
Justice League. A lot of the trailers, like, tons of comedy, and you're like, all right, who's the villain? What's
these
happening?
aren't hitting. Yeah.
So-
Also, who is the villain? of
Steppenwolf.
Yeah,
Steppenwolf, the
Yeah.
theater from Chicago.
exactly.
It's Darkseid's uncle.
All right. Okay. Darkseid is
Because they
their
got to say
Thanos.
Darkseid.
He's their Thanos,
Exactly.
right? Like literally just Thanos.
Yeah. Pretty
Oh
much.
boy.
Yeah.
Just nuke it. Just start over. You see, just start over.
Just start over.
Just start over. The Ouroboros.
Try
like,
again.
No, but like they've gone too deep into the Batman Begins timeline, where like, oh, we have to be
I
gritty
wish they
and
did
serious.
Batman Begins.
But I mean, I'm saying like,
No
It's-
color. Like,
yeah, it's too serious. Like,
Yeah.
chill out.
Thor is just so beautiful because we're like, obviously these Marvel movies are going to go for decades at this point. Like they've already said
yeah.
the post Avengers 4 phase, because they do phases. They're like, all right, after Avengers 4 we're going to go into like the interstellar intergalactic cosmic phase where just like everything's out of control in that sense.
Yeah.
But like for all intents and purposes, Avengers 4 is like the finale
Yeah.
of this 10-year journey
It's
that we've
the-
been on. And
mean-
for this Thor momentum to like ride into that
Yeah.
is just, it's so rewarding as a fan who's been going to these movies for so long and like watching all the shows. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. ended last season with Coulson and them in space. So like now S.H.I.E.L.D. is set to like have an impact maybe because like everyone's all in space and everything. So
That's
it's just
cool.
like a really exciting time for.
Well, and finally
MCU.
they feel like they're actually driving forward with some momentum, because like before it just felt like the season finale of various TV shows.
Yeah.
And they're always just cliffhangering into the next one. But Doctor Strange and this one, they actually do feel like because Thanos is like a joke to me at this point. It's
of
like, I
course.
don't care about Thanos. He's been the tease
course.
for a decade.
That's why he has to come and immediately snap Hawkeye's
neck. Yeah.
Immediately.
First thing. Like
First,
first
kill.
minute of the it starts
Reveal, kill.
the movie starts, he's got Hawkeye on his ship for some reason.
Yeah.
Just snaps his neck.
He's already has him in his hand.
Yeah.
Cut to Hawkeye's face, dead.
The cold
And then it
open,
goes
yeah.
to Vision and he's like, he's
Oh,
dead.
and you think it's and it's not like a vision, it's not a
Vision is
precog.
like seeing the future.
I think
Stop.
yeah. Anything else that you liked recently, Huber?
That's pretty much it for movies.
Yeah.
I want to see Murder on the Orient Express.
I
It
wanna
comes
see
out
that too.
Tonight. I was
Yeah.
probably going to try to
I want to see
swing
Lady
by.
Bird also.
Lady Bird, a lot of good stuff out there.
Greta Garbo or whatever.
I started Mr. Robot. I did not.
Season 1?
Season 3.
Oh. I'm
didn't-
not finished with season 2 yet.
Okay, season 1 was incredible.
Yeah.
Season 2.
It lost me a little bit. Lost me a little bit.
Season 3 now. We're still kind of riding that season 2 of like self-important, self-righteous, just like impressed with itself almost vibe. Like, I don't know. That's the vibe I kind of get with Mr. Robot right now. It's just like rambling. Everyone just rambles on and on.
Yeah.
So I've only watched like the first 3 episodes, but it's kind of a slow start. for Mr.
Hashtag
Robot.
no more talking in TV.
I mean, season 1 was like
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
Top
The-
tier.
Mr.
Have
Robot
you seen Mr. Robot season 1?
I'm not.
Oh, you'd love it.
is good. Mr. Robot season 2, I stopped watching it because it was like too effective. in a weird way. Like the smarmy like bastard corporate dude was too smarmy.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to watch him.
So I'm
just
the
like,
thing.
I'm out.
That's why I keep watching, because I love all of these characters, and the production and the acting. Everything is so incredible, but it's just the story is dragging on right now. So, I don't know what their end goal was when the show started. I don't know if they expected the show to be as big as it was. It just seems kind of adrift.
I'm actually,
right now.
that was something, I got an email from Mr. Robot earlier today, because I was on their like ARG or whatever, so I get the emails. And I was like, oh, right. That show wasn't just a one-off like mini series like I thought it was going to be. Yeah. I did see, you'd like this. I got like obliterated with spoilers. Because sometimes I come home and Omar's just like watching stuff on the projector, right?
Oh, no.
So I like sit down and I'm like, oh, what's this show? And like halfway through, I realize it's *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Oh,
and
my
like
God.
so many spoilers. I was like, hey, this show's pretty good. I know everything now.
Oh my God, I can't even stress how good that show is. The final season just goes there, man.
Yeah.
It is incredible. The last couple episodes.
Is it done now? It's done.
It is
then?
over.
Okay.
The show ended. That show survived because some bigwig at AMC was like, "This is my favorite show. We're keeping it alive."
Yeah.
Unbelievably good.
I really
Deals
like
with the creation of some video games and computers and tech. The final season delivered.
I mean,
So
I
good.
love Lee Pace and she's
Mackenzie
from
Davis.
Mackenzie. I was like, Mackenzie, yeah. She's from San Junipero as well. Yeah, they're
Oh my
great.
gosh.
Same
So
thing
good.
happened to me with The Good Place, which I'm now caught up on. I came home and Omar was watching like the most spoilery episode.
Oh, don't spoil it. I'm gonna start
yeah.
that next.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Cool.
The Good Place. Check it out. Jones, have you liked anything recently?
Well, we were October happened.
Yeah.
And
Did it ever?
I just gorged on tons and tons and tons of horror. It's so nice
Throw a
having
couple
like
out there. Throw a couple.
Amazon Prime. Well, I watched the entire Saw series, which I had never seen
Whoa.
before, start to finish. So I popped
That's
in
a
Saw
choice.
1. And I remember actually Amanda, having a conversation with Amanda one time, and she was like, yeah, I remember that not being terrible. She's like, I remember the end of Saw 1 being very clever.
James Wan,
And I was
baby.
like, okay,
Saw One is
James Wan has made some what I consider very, very bad films. I can't. What's like the good
Name a bad
James
one.
Wan movie? Most of them. What's like the good James Wan movie?
The Conjuring.
I don't like the Conjuring.
Insidious 1 and 2. Conjuring 2. So
It's-
Conjuring 1 and 2.
Insidious
Insidious
1
1
I
and 2.
think is cool. It's
Dead Silence, underrated gem.
Dead Silence is there is creepy.
Is that the
in
one
parts,
with
definitely.
the
And I like
yeah.
Lights Off.
Yeah.
Did he produce
Lights Out. He
Lights Out?
didn't. I think he maybe produced it, or the company produced
Lights
it.
Out gets pretty hokey, and love solves everything in the end, like most horror films do. Where it's
Is it-
just like, yeah, but love and ghosts are friends. And I
didn't really like Lights Out.
Is it-
but
is
Lights
Lights
Out has
Out-
some imagery that is killer. Has some really, really great, simple,
It's where
no
the-
sound effect laden
the demon
visual horror.
can only come in the dark.
is
so
Lights Out's not the one where it's like, hey, if you have a depressed relative, just let them kill themselves, and that's great.
Whoa, what is that?
There was a movie where like the answer basically was like, just get rid of people with mental problems, and everyone was like, whoa, this is problematic.
Whoa, I
Yeah.
have not even heard of that.
Maybe it wasn't Lights Out. Now I'm not remembering which one it was.
But once I finished Saw 1, I was like, oh, I didn't know it'd be like that cliffhangery. I kind of want to see. I kind of want this resolved now. I wonder if they have Saw 2. And
no.
Netflix has all of them. And so I was like, okay.
Did you go to the theater and see Jigsaw?
Did not. So
We should go, Jones.
as much as I,
You're an
you know,
enthusiast now.
Well, I've seen all of them in the comfort of my own home, so I don't want to
Right.
spoil that mood now. You know? But I was amazed how bad the acting is, how bad the writing is, and how I could not stop watching. Like I had to go all the way through. And they wrap things up in the Saw franchise way better than that franchise deserves.
Really?
Yeah.
It like pays
So like
off?
actually, if you're like around Saw 4 or 5 and you're just like I can't do it, skip to 7, skip to the final chapter or Saw 3D or whatever. Like it's got like 20 titles. But I love how every single film has a hard hour 30 TRT. Like,
so funny.
In and out.
I just imagine them getting the script and it's like 91 pages and they're like, yeah, we got cut this page here.
Trim the fat.
We're out. Just save it and just like, yo, we got this scene with the cop. It's just like Saw 6, baby, Saw 6. We'll get to it.
Yeah. Isn't that what you said about Justice League?
Justice League, the order came from on high
2 hours.
that it had to be 2 hours, no matter what or
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
Period. And it came in at an hour and 59.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's everything everyone's talking about. So like, I don't know if I'm putting my 2 cents on it would be that profound. But Stranger Things finished
Sure.
In this month, and I liked it actually. I liked that it started at Halloween, and so if people like didn't have time to finish it, like it wouldn't like end on Halloween.
Right,
It's like November 7th.
right.
People are watching it. Like I thought they paced that out really well.
I timed it so perfectly where I watched the first 2 episodes like a day before Halloween. So I got that like Halloween vibe.
Yeah.
And then now I've been like slowly going through. I finished
so you're
episode.
not done yet.
I finished episode 6. I think I have 2 or 3 left.
Well, here you go.
So
Yeah.
7's a weird one.
Yeah. Oh right. Oh
but,
god. All right.
I liked and I think season 2 did some more interesting things than the first one did. I think there's it's really broad, which I enjoyed. Like introduce ourselves to a lot of characters that were supposedly there in the first season, but we get to know them, and so I love when things are fleshed out. Open world, good towns, you know, like I like when we get more context, we understand the lives people live and where they come from, and they put a couple new characters in there that I thought were a little hokey, but
dude, one word for you.
Were
guys.
implemented, but
Bob.
Hype.
Saint Bob.
Bob. Hype.
Yeah.
So I just,
Bob the brain.
So just I think it's kind of the thing where like I don't know. It's not the type of show where I want to compare like season 1 versus 2. I'm in. I love these characters. I'm into the story. Supposedly they want to do 4 seasons. I think that's the rumor.
what I heard. Yeah.
So
Good on them.
I think that would be
Good
awesome.
on them. You don't need to carry it on 15 seasons like Walking Dead.
Right.
Let's go.
I don't, it's not the type of show where I finish a season and I'm like, you know what they got to do next season. I
Right.
do not care. If we stick around in Hawkins, great. If we go somewhere else, great.
When they finished season 2, I was like, what are they gonna do next season?
it's kind of. I think they kind of opened it up. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good midpoint for a show.
I think we should. Once you're done, we should maybe try to do a spoiler.
100%. I'm gonna finish. Tomorrow, I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna watch.
Will Byers,
final.
give that kid an Emmy, man.
Oh, yeah,
my
yeah,
God,
Good
gave
stuff.
it his absolute all this season.
Good
That's gotta be
stuff.
so hard for a kid to, on so many different levels, to just show distress and
Yeah.
you know,
Incredible.
be freaking out, and
Such a good character.
so committed, and you just look in his eyes and like he's all there. But I finally saw. And I think I'm all caught up on Tarantino now, but I finally saw Hateful Eight, which I hadn't seen before, which is on Netflix, which is a good 2-hour 40.
Yeah. Settle in.
And I got a love-hate relationship. Hate's a very, very strong word. I have a love-annoyance relationship with Tarantino, where
Yeah.
it's kind of like Saw, where it's like I have a lot of problems with Hateful Eight. My eyeballs were glued to the television for that 2 hours and 40 minutes because he just does something. He just lays out characters on a chessboard, and I'm like, I have to watch the end of this chess game now.
That's the conversation I want to have. Is because it's a Tarantino movie. I feel like this happens every single time a Tarantino movie comes out. It is held under a different lens. It is examined differently and criticized differently, knowing that it is Quentin Tarantino.
I think that's partly Tarantino's fault,
Right,
because
I was just gonna say that,
he
yeah.
puts his stamp on his movies
Yeah.
so
Sure,
much.
fair enough,
Like
fair enough.
I think more than any director I really admire and enjoy, and especially the Reservoir Dogs is my favorite. I think Pulp Fiction is probably like the best movie he's made, but Reservoir Dogs is still my favorite.
Jackie Brown's underrated.
It is. The second time I saw it, it was
Hell yeah.
better.
Jackie
Actually,
Brown's
the
real
first
good.
time.
Max
It's got some
Cherry.
really great moments. But again, I think the moments are what I enjoy the most when I come out of a film. I think Inglourious Bastards is tonally his strangest movie, where it's just like all over the place.
Right.
And I think, like, as someone who loves Westerns, I think that was what was most bizarre for me, was it just kind of like, you know, me just kind of like every 10 minutes where it feels like we're in a new movie, you know, just,
Yeah.
and so
That soundtrack.
but that stuff keeps me like into it. Yeah. And he got, I'm terrible with old composer
Oh,
names.
In Reno,
yeah.
in
Morricone
Reno.
or Morricone or,
yeah.
and so that was interesting, you know,
Well, because he'd been like, you know, like alluding to Morricone like his entire career, and then he finally gets him. You know?
Yeah.
It's just that the music was my favorite part. The
Oh my-
overture and the
Oh.
the intermission music were my favorite parts of that entire movie.
and the cast was just phenomenal. It was like so many of my favorite people. Bruce Stern, I thought, was really great and unexpected, and
Yeah.
you know, because I don't think that he and
I
Tarantino
like,
worked before.
It's definitely not
And
as.
Kurt Russell, of course, can
I
just
like
do
Walter
anything.
Goggins a
Oh,
lot.
I love Walter. Goggins.
He's good.
Yeah,
Good actor.
love him.
Is that the-
Justified, baby?
He's
Is that the guy from Vice
Justified.
Principals? And-
Yeah,
Vice
from
Principals?
Vice
Yeah,
Principals, yeah. Mhm.
It's definitely not his best movie, but watching it, I in my brain know that I'm watching a master. I'm watching a master craftsman create.
Right.
And that just gets me every time, you know?
So,
like,
yeah.
like I know it's not his best movie. I know it. And sure, it has a little bit of problems here and there, But
you
it's
can
like
feel the loss of his editor.
it's
I think for sure.
Yeah.
Well, here's my thing with Tarantino, and especially on a film podcast. Like, I hate to get too much into this because this is really just like my personal style. I remember talking to my brother. My brother's like, I just don't like the lead singer of Radiohead, and I was like, okay, fine.
I can
just understand how like totally
from.
it just happens. Like for some people, like the vibrations in your ear and vibrations of certain songs just physically do not match, and so it's like, okay, that's fine. We're all built differently. But I don't know if I was crazy, but the narrator doesn't come in until like an hour 40 into that movie. Like all of a sudden there's a narrator.
I don't
even
remember a narrator.
It's after the intermission, and it tells you about the poison
bit with the coffee.
Right.
And you're like, just to kind of clue you in. And like, and then I can't stop as if you were wonder like, okay, is this him realizing like, wait, I don't think people are gonna understand this. And so I need to just drop in a narrator.
I think it's him just setting
it's
the
him
tone.
just being weird.
Yeah.
Because it comes right after the intermission. I don't know if the home video version has intermission in it.
So it's him just being weird is what I feel in my gut.
Yeah.
And so it's so strange for me to see somebody who, from my perspective, seems to love cinema more than like anybody else. You know, it's like so dedicated, is so committed to genre, even challenging like Coen brother levels of just like, I'm, gonna make this movie everything it can possibly be, and then just like I'm gonna use 8 different fonts in my opening credits. What? It just it's that thing that it's tough for me to groove with, not in the same way that like watching a Coen Brothers film or watching a Cameron film and really like yes, I know this director, I know what he's going for here, I get it. I always kind of feel like I'm being tossed around in a Tarantino movie.
We're just gonna put up with the Leafblower, but I definitely, I mean like. The cruel read of Tarantino is that he's a film school kid. He's a film school student that's doing that thing. Whereas like the Coen brothers feel like master filmmakers. Man. They're making like they're in the craft. Whereas like Tarantino is in the craft.
Where he's like mimicking but with his own style.
Yeah, and I'm not criticizing. Like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just very much. That's what his thing is, I don't dislike Tarantino movies. I actively dislike Django Unchained, and I didn't love Hateful Eight, but the other ones I like. But yeah, he's definitely Tarantino.
Nothing like it.
Yeah,
he will go down in history as one of the all-time greats.
Like I have a lot of issues on the first like half of that movie, and then I couldn't finish it all in one sitting. And I remember like going back and like cracking open Netflix and being like, I got an hour, like to eat, watch them during lunch. What can I? And like was stoked to get back to it. I was like, I can finish Hateful Eight, So it's that's where I sit with him, where I'm like, he's got me by the balls here. I gotta watch the rest of this story, but at the same time, like, that was a weird artistic choice.
I've never not been excited for a Tarantino movie until now. I'm not big on the next one coming out, the Manson one.
Oh yeah,
Charles
I think
Manson.
It's a little weird.
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see if it's in poor taste or if it's like, who knows.
Yeah.
Anything else that you've liked recently?
That's it. Just lots of horror.
You don't have to like anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Thor. What?
I wanted to ask John something.
Okay.
You were talking about horror movies, Halloween.
Uh-oh. He's getting closer.
Jason Voorhees is coming.
Yeah, it's gonna...
Brandon Jones, what other horror movies did you watch? In October, you said you watched a handful. You watched Saw? Any other ones?
There's lots of leaves directly by the garage.
Let's
a giant pile of leaves directly out in front of the garage.
If Jason came crashing through the door, I would just say, take me.
Take me now.
Take me.
You've earned it.
Yeah, a lot of it was just kind of like stuff. A lot of them were bad. I mean, a lot of them were, it's like, I think that's like Netflix's haul is just like, okay, we'll actually get like 4 or 5 decent horror films.
Right. Sometimes I wonder if they like...
trying to think if there's anything like classic that I had never seen before.
They're after like one good horror movie and they buy a lot of like 4,000 just to get that one.
What's your guys' familiarity with Friday the 13th? How many have you seen?
Oh, yeah. Several times.
I've seen the first one and Freddy vs. Jason.
Nice.
And I'm not sure if I've seen the others.
Okay.
I'm more familiar with Hellraiser than Jason.
Fair enough.
All the other ones, bleed together. First one I remember very well.
Yeah.
And I've seen Freddy vs. Jason and
they all blend. All the other ones blend for you.
I mean, space obviously doesn't blend with anything. Space.
Jason
10, or what was it called?
Jason X.
Jason X, yeah.
cool.
Was Jason Goes to Hell,
The 9th one.
and it was supposed to be the last one?
Yeah. And then at the very, very end, Freddy Krueger's hand comes up and grabs his mask. And then that kind of started
what?
the whole Freddy
And
vs.
that was
Jason.
Freddy Jason, and
Yeah.
then
Yep.
Jason X was after
Super cool moment.
Oh, wait, Jason X was after Freddy vs. Jason?
Yeah.
Weird. That's
Or
weird.
wait. Oh, I forget.
No, I think Jason in Space was way before Freddy vs.
Yeah.
Jason.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Whatever.
I forget that.
Anyways.
Yeah.
I liked Thor Ragnarok. I saw Blade of the Immortal the other day.
Hype.
And woo, is
So
that a
hype.
movie? Takashi Miike's 100th film. Good lord.
Such a madman.
A madman.
In college, I went on a Takashi Miike binge where I was just because Ichi the Killer at that
Yeah.
time was like one of my favorite movies. I was like, oh my god, this movie. So I've seen like 15 of his movies. Nothing. He's got 100.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you make 100
Drop in
movies?
the bucket. I have no idea. And like, I mean, I have to imagine that most of the ones we haven't seen are like,
Rare, hard to find.
or like easy to make, like easier to make than the ones I've seen. Because
Yeah.
like Ichi the Killer, Audition, 13 Assassins, and
Yeah.
this are like
Crazy.
huge in scale.
Yeah.
And I mean, this one, it's like, I could see that it was probably easier to shoot than 13 Assassins, but not by much, because it's got massive scenes of sword-based violence that I'm just like, how do you even shoot this stuff in one go? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening?
That's what I love about him is that he makes these smaller movies and
Yeah.
then just blows it up with a
Yeah.
really big one.
13 Assassins is one of my favorite movies.
Hell yeah.
We got to do an
Could be his
episode on
best.
Japanese film eventually.
Really could be his best.
I actually think, of the ones I've seen, it's my favorite.
And
Is that
Audition.
recent?
For a genre
13
movie.
Assassins, I want to
Oh,
say, is like 2007 or 9.
Oh, but like this,
Blade of the
Yeah.
Immortal
This
is
century,
brand new.
right?
Yeah.
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 I just
Blade
13
of the
Assassins.
Immortal,
I'm familiar with.
Blade of the
I've seen
Immortal is
floating
out
around.
right now.
Cool.
Oh, you would love 13 Assassins.
13
Jones.
Assassins
Okay,
is
cool.
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Do you like Seven Samurai or
course,
Magnificent
of course.
Seven? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically.
it's like a heist movie though,
Yeah.
because like the first half of the movie
You're
is
so
setting
in,
up
John.
this assassination,
You're so
and then
in.
the second half is just doing the
the
assassination.
job.
Yes,
It's so good.
I love that.
13 Assassins. It blows Hateful Eight out of the water. Boom.
Boom.
I just compared them.
Crazy.
Anyway,
Shocking.
Blade of the Immortal is very cool and very bloody and worth a watch. I've never seen or read. I've never read any of the manga, but it seemed like a manga for sure.
That's so cool.
I was like, yeah, this is a manga.
He does
because
some
like
crazy
sometimes things
stuff.
happen. You're just like. They just have no no middle scene. It's just all of a sudden like we're there. We're doing the thing that matters, and it's like all right.
He has this. He has these
Between
movies
issues.
called Dead or Alive, not the video game, but Dead or Alive. It's like Yakuza stuff,
Oh, okay.
and just it'll go from like scene in the back room, everyone's smoking, like having a conversation, till the next scene, just like drowning a baby or like rocket launchers and like laser eyes. It's chaos. The guy's crazy, but somehow it doesn't come off as jarring
Right.
or incomplete or.
Did you see
It
three
just
stories?
flows.
Three
did not.
stories. His it's three. It's like a little horror anthology with three different things. His is very crazy. Anyways, speaking of horror movies, speaking of mockumentaries, let's talk about this week's assignment month. This month's assignment film, Leafblowers.
Should we like
Leaf
kill?
blower,
Should
man.
we fill dead air for a few minutes?
It's very like
before-
cinema verite with the
Yeah.
with the leaf blower. There's leaf blowers in life, baby.
There's Leafblowers. Sometimes, you know, it's like
It's really day in the life here, you know.
yeah.
Right now.
I imagine like that scene from American Beauty, and then the camera just zooms back, and there's just a guy with a leaf blower blowing the plastic bag around.
I can fill
Hits
dead
your
air for
kids like-
2 minutes
Fill dead air, Huber.
because Halloween is now over and it makes me sad. We gotta
Yeah.
wait another year.
It's depressing.
So what is just really quickly recap? What's your guys' favorite horror movie or franchise
Favorite horror movie of all time?
or favorite horror franchise?
I've told you about Exorcist 3, right? That's my
Exorcist. Yeah,
that's
dude.
my favorite. Exorcist Trace.
What an inspired pick, Jones. So
because it's
great.
not the typical thing. It's not the movie everybody talks about, but I think it holds up, and it absolutely destroyed me as a child. I was scared of that film, and
Oh,
I previously was scared of characters in films or scenes, moments. But that movie from top to bottom, everything about it, like looking at the poster would give me chills. Like,
I have a
Exorcist
similar-
1 has got to be in my top 5 for horror.
yeah,
I had a similar experience with. I don't like this movie because it's not very good, but I was terrified of Event Horizon. That movie ruined my life.
The
God.
bleeding
Yeah,
eyes.
that movie ruined my life when I was a kid. I saw it when I was like 13 or something.
It's so great, Ian. Our generation, like our age group, was scarred by that movie. You
Yeah.
talk to
Oh,
anyone
yeah.
that's like late 20s,
Yeah,
early 30s,
yeah.
Event Horizon, man.
Event Horizon. I couldn't.
no
I
one else
couldn't
gets it.
sleep for months. It like actually ruined my life. Favorites though, I mean, I always did. I grew up really liking like the Clive Barker stuff, like Hellraiser and all that. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare was my jam as a kid.
Yeah.
That was the thing. To bring up Jason, it was like, yeah, kind of. Was like Nightmare. All
Freddy.
of them, multiple
Before
Dream
Christmas
Warriors.
The
best.
I've actually not seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies except for Freddy vs.
I
Jason.
think you dig him, Ian.
Really?
I think
I
you would dig
really
him
think
Ian.
too.
I like
Yeah.
because there's a thing I never watched them because like growing up a lot of my depression centered around not being able to get to sleep. So I was like, I should avoid a movie that actively makes you afraid to go to sleep.
Yep.
I'm gonna just not go there.
Smart call.
But I do love. There's something so wicked about horror franchises that take innocuous everyday things and make them terrifying.
Yes.
I think like if you can do that to any like everyday thing, it's like, whoa, all right, you did it.
It's creepy to the story that inspired Wes Craven was like this kid who like didn't want to sleep and was screaming to his parents, and they were like, no, you gotta sleep, and then just one day he had this really crazy psychotic episode, and he said, if I sleep now I'm gonna die, and they were like, you have to get some sleep, and he slept and died in his sleep, and they don't know what killed him. Died mysteriously in his sleep. So Wes Craven's like reading this in newspaper, and he's like, whoa. It was like James
Doing
Cameron having
that.
a nightmare about the Terminator and just waking up the next day like type. And so with the scene when Nancy has like the coffee in her room, that's like from that story. Like they like found like a pot of coffee like hidden in his closet. That he was like,
because he's trying not to
like,
sleep.
pounding coffee at night.
How is he leaf blown outside of this door again?
There's just a lot of leaves.
It's a lot of leaves.
Because now you knock
It's
the
cinema
leaves
verite.
from one area into another area, and then now you got to start from the other area to go back. Every time you're leaf blowing one area, it's just knocking leaves into another area.
Leaf blowing is
He's-
inefficient and it pollutes and it's noisy and I don't see the point.
He's adding
sure to
to the
bring that
horror
up.
vibe because I'm immediately thinking of Friday the 13th Part 7 when Jason gets the giant buzzsaw
Yeah.
and kills the psychiatrist, and it
Yeah.
sounds exactly
just like this.
Exactly.
Oh,
like
I do want to give credit to the last two Chucky films, which completely passed me by. There's a new one that came out. There was a direct sequel.
I heard it was good.
And this was The Cult of Chucky, which is direct sequel to The Curse of Chucky, which feel like a new direction. Feels like, I think it's like a new director stepping in.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be like another Chucky on the way. So this wasn't like Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky was like a different, I think it's maybe same producers, kind of in a James Bond way, but they like brought in a new like creative lead. And better than I was anticipating. Some really interesting stuff, like some fun horror moments, some legit like creepy vibes,
Yeah.
and a really good attitude about itself. You
Yeah.
know? Not obviously in a like home run Thor Ragnarok kind of way, but like definitely aware that this is like the 8th or whatever Chucky movie.
Yeah. Shout out to Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
Right on.
The Craft.
Shout out to the craft. Shout out to the faculty. Shout out to Ernest
Still got to
Scared
see the
Stupid.
faculty. Watch The Craft again.
Oh, I
though.
love
That
The
was on
Faculty.
Netflix. Yeah.
Josh
Faculty's
Hartnett.
hilarious.
Bring back Josh Hartnett.
He's around here
I
and there.
love him. He's so great.
He
he
was
on,
in Penny Dreadful.
Yeah.
That's right. I stopped
I gotta-
on
I gotta
season
finish
2.
Penny
Well, I
Dreadful.
finally watched
was in
Mr.
season
Morgan
2.
and Dr.
Jonathan Strange and Mr.
Jonathan
Norrell?
Yeah.
Is that good?
So good.
A couple episodes in, yeah, and I'm
Yes.
really enjoying it.
I had that
Very-
book, but I never read it.
Oh, dude. So good. Ian.
One of the best
Yeah.
recommendations from here. Just on
I
a
gotta check
personal
it out.
one,
I
like
gotta check it
It's faithful to the book.
Okay.
Because Beth read the book and then watched the show and approved.
Also, I always liked The Ninth Gate for some reason.
with
It's not a good
Depp.
movie.
with Johnny Depp.
I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen that one.
It just has like a cool, weird, like gross vibe to it that I like. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like it's a detective noir, but also like demon summoning. I like it.
I love demons.
Just the gate is also legit. A young Steven Dorff.
Love Steven Dorff.
The gate to hell opens up in his backyard.
Deacon Frost. Blade.
His friend gets
Yeah.
possessed and he stabs him in the eye with the feet of a Barbie doll. It's pretty sweet.
Awesome.
Speaking of Blade, you can't go to a party dressed as Blade. What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh yeah.
So funny. I was dying.
All right, let's talk about what we do in the
I was
shadows.
dying.
Huber, so I'm actually surprised because you don't like comedies generally.
So I found out
Right.
Twitch chat
you
and
do.
the
You
comments
just like good comedies.
said I'm very picky. They said, Huber, you don't not like comedies. You're just very picky about comedies.
Right.
I said, oh, okay.
So I think that's it. It's not
We're
like I don't
learning,
like
we're
horror. I
growing.
love horror. I'm just very picky about
Right.
it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Samesies.
So,
Whereas, I'll watch a dumb comedy. Sure.
So what hit you about What
I
We
like
Do in the
Zoolander.
Shadows?
first of all, the lore right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Got me hooked
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
The first 5 minutes, they're going into the lore of the vampires and like all these really cool pictures and
The
paintings.
opening sequence is very good.
Right out of the gate, establishing the rules of the world, pulled me in and made me invested.
Yeah.
Just like that. Because like the comedy I don't like is when there are no rules, things just happen, people die and there's no consequences, or like,
You don't like zany.
yeah. I just
you don't like
can't-
random humor.
Yeah, I can't get invested in that.
That's why I think mockumentaries are going to be great for you because they're rooted in reality.
Yeah.
They're just slightly skewed reality, and I think this might be your genre,
It was
bud.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It was
But
I think it's important that humor was grabbed in the beginning, though, because I think I've finished real documentaries that I thought were interesting stories, and I'm glad I watched. But man, the first 3 minutes, I'm like,
Right.
where are we going?
Right.
It's like if you're setting up a documentary, if you want to spend money on it, spend the money on those first 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like really set up, have a really good title sequence. By the time the title of your film lands, maybe you're like, whoa, I gotta finish this story. Because if
I
you just
think-
start with a dude talking for 6 minutes, like, I don't know.
I think that documentaries are very hard to end. I watched Amanda Knox last night for the first time.
Yeah.
I didn't know like anything about that story at all. And yeah, the first half of it, I was invested. I was like, yeah, and then it kind of just fizzles. And there are a lot of other documentaries, true crime stuff especially, that I've seen where it kind of is like that, And the problem is, I think that it's a binary ending. It's either they did it or they didn't,
yeah.
and you either find out or you don't, And it's like, which can be really dramatic, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. Mockumentaries, don't have that problem because they can write an ending. What We Do in the Shadows, I think, has it's so great at just everything about it is great. First of all, and We're Wolves is going to be hilarious. Which is
Wait, they're making a sequel?
they're making a sequel called We're Wolves,
Oh, yes.
and take out the apostrophe, and it's werewolves. And it's about the werewolves, and I'm very excited about it. Yeah, I don't know much more about it than that, but I'm excited. But yeah, this movie starts strong, stays strong, and ends strong. I love the ending. It's touching. That's something that happens with a lot of my favorite mockumentaries is that they're really funny, but they also are really uplifting and heartwarming and touching. Juan Likes Rice and Chicken comes to mind from Documentary Now, too. But yeah. Oh man, What We Do in the Shadows. The effects are really well done.
Yeah.
They're very understated,
Really
and they
good gore.
look really natural.
Yeah. When he was on fire in the basement.
Oh
That
god,
was
Peter.
Such good effects. And it was so shocking because I was like, this guy,
Yeah.
he's clearly the strongest one.
Right.
He's so old. He's got
Right.
all the power. This is like Count Dracula down here.
Yeah.
And then what they do with that just totally caught me off guard.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's going to come in at the end and do some damage.
His name is Peter, right?
Yeah, Peter.
I love that he just got some standard name.
What the one of the guys like runs out of the house and he's like, Peter got him.
And everyone's like, oh,
Unlucky bastard.
Yeah,
It's like,
oh.
oh no.
Peter got him.
I like the lighting. It's really dark in that house.
Yeah.
So I like that whenever they're looking at something, it's really just the light on the camera that's just super hot on them, and you can kind of see this like dark fringe
Yeah.
around the border of the film that's always there. That is kind of spooky and uncomfortable, like and that's why I think they do really well with like the costumes and the quality of that house. It's a really great set. How practical the effects are. Even seeing him float and vacuum is funny but kind of unsettling at the same time. Like him opening up the closet. The closet door and being like, we're having dinner or a meeting, and he's like hanging upside down.
Yeah.
It's like, aha, that's funny. That actor had to be hung upside down in that closet. But at the same time, I'm thinking, that's kind of spooky, actually, that guy, imagine a house like this.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being in New Orleans or being in one of these cities and seeing these houses and wondering,
Yeah.
like, I wonder what weird people, because even if there's some weird stuff going on in that house that isn't supernatural, it's still weird and spooky stuff.
Well, I like when he opens Jermaine Clement's door, and it's like that weird, like, satin void with those two women for a second, and then he like shuts the door and then he opens it and it's just a bedroom.
Straight up like Dracula.
Yeah. And it's awesome because that's one of the things I love about it is it's steeped in the vampire lore.
Yeah.
They do Nosferatu, they do Dracula, they do, the Anne Rice stuff. They even like in a little bit of a way like the new vampire, they do a little bit of like the Twilight stuff where he's just walking around like I'm a vampire. Yeah. I love one of the funniest lines in the whole movie to me is when the older vampires are like, you can't just go around saying that you're a vampire, and then he's like, you've got a documentary crew following you around. Like, what is happening? And if you there's an after credits in this movie. I won't say what it is, but watch the credits because it's funny.
Yeah,
after the credits.
But some of my favorite movies in this genre are my favorites because there is a little bit of truth there.
Right.
And we'll talk about American Vandal later, but like that gets surprisingly poignant. You know, like that actually touches on some grander themes at the end of it. And it's just like, how dare you? This is a comedy, but like it's a remarkable how it manages to do that. How you kind of find yourself like actually being invested. And you're like, wait, they're making all this crap up. Why do I care?
Right.
And I think with this movie, I think there's a lot to be said about can friendship survive over a certain length of time?
Right.
What do you do with ego amongst a small group of people, when you have people that are friends just because they have to be, but don't necessarily get along? And just talking about outcasts in general. Like, I think there's a lot, them trying to get into the club as vampires. It's, it's funny, but obviously there's so many reasons why you would not be accepted in a social situation or be at the wrong club at the wrong time. And
I didn't know what to think at the very end when he turns his long lost wife or whatever, with the woman he wanted to marry,
his thrall.
She's like 96 years old.
Oh no, the one.
The other one, right?
Oh
yeah.
When he turned her, and he's like, "Yeah, now we're gonna live forever." I was like, "Is this really happy or really sad?"
Right.
It gave me weird feelings, and I don't know if you guys felt the same way. If that was the intention, or
I think it's very interesting, and it treats vampirism as real, and it treats them like people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the strengths of mockumentary on the whole, and this movie. I love the line at the end when he says, and there's a big age difference, like this woman is with someone who's several hundred years older than her, but you know what? I'll rob the cradle. It's just like it's a funny like way to flip that, and that's Taika Waititi.
Yeah,
or whatever, however you say it. I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong, but
he's good vibes.
Oh yeah. Also, he's aging very well. There was everyone's like all a buzz on the internet where like there's a picture of him and the cast of Thor, and everyone's just like, "How is the director the hottest one? Like, what's going on? He looks good now. He's like gray. It's cool." But anyways, but yeah, the filmmaking of this movie, the format, pacing of. Mockumentaries seem to all share a kind of similar pace to me, where it's usually like a dry humor, and the jokes usually come in like, I don't know, there's like the beats of a mockumentary are similar. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's maybe not intentional, or it's a coincidence, but I don't know. I think that the way that they meter out comedy is really good, and this movie does that really well. Introducing new characters, introducing new things. The thrall when she gets turned by the young vampire, love it. It's great.
But even just going to see her house and like the things that she has to put up with, I'm feeling this emotional struggle between like, this is hilarious that this poor woman, has to deal with all this stuff, and at the same time you're like, I mean, that would be horrible if that actually happened, but like, it's not real, ha ha ha,
Well, and also, like, her character is very depressing, too, because she just doesn't care about her family at all. Mm-hmm. Like, she's got kids and doesn't care. I think she's got kids. And she's got a husband.
But she plays it so real. She's so grounded.
Right.
And I think that's, if anybody out there is listening to this, or anybody has aspirations like to make a mockumentary, it's like, it's got to be real like that.
Right.
And I know it can be so easy once everybody gets together and the camera's rolling to be like, all right, step back, everybody. I'm going to be super funny right now.
Right.
And it's like, just be real. We'll shoot hours of it, and we'll let you know what the funny parts were. Like, we'll at the end of the day realize, like, oh, we just caught your eye in that one moment, and the timing and everything was so great.
To do a big character in a mockumentary is very hard because, you still have to be a person. You still have to be real. I think the Christopher Guest movies, specifically Waiting for Guffman, where he's playing Corky, who is out there, But it's like, if you've ever worked in theater, like you know that guy.
Sure,
you've met that
course.
person, and it's like, okay, this is a big personality, but they're still a personality. They're still real. And yeah, I think everyone in this movie does a great job with that. Nobody seems off kilter, and like the timing of acting uncertain and like the appropriate amount of realistically awkward is hard to do.
The meeting at the end, the gathering, with the zombies and everyone, when everyone starts to realize that Stu is human,
Right.
I think nails that timing and pacing of, uneasiness, and
Right.
they start to realize, and they're like, okay, Stu, we should go this way. We should get out of here. And the zombie sitting there, he's like, are you pre-deceased?
I love that. Are you pre-deceased?
Like, slowly gets up.
Yeah. Well, and that's great too, because like the characters should have known. That
Yeah.
He should, but they didn't even think about it because they just accept Stu. It's a really
And
good-
Stu, I mean, that
Stu's
actor,
great.
talk about being grounded,
yeah.
It's like, it would have been so easy for him to like try to go for a joke.
Right.
And I wonder if like he really got that, or if the director, kind of constantly had to be like, no, less. Like the focus should not be on you. You should, and because that's hilarious. Him just
Yeah.
constantly being like, you can't tell. Like, is he
Standing
into this?
there.
Is he not? Like, is he?
Can
is
he
is
hear
he
him
frozen
talking?
with fear,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
does he just not care about life? Like, what?
Right.
What is going on?
Yeah, Stu.
Stu better be a big part in Werewolves.
Oh, I love Stu.
Yeah.
I love Stu.
But yeah, it's that emotional investment, and how does that happen in a film where we know none of this is real and all of it's a dumb joke?
Right.
And but no, I really care about Stu.
Yeah, I mean,
Why?
That brings us nicely into our first kind of discussion question: is what works about this format for comedy? Like, what about documentary makes it so successful at being funny? Samuel Cardwell says a big part of the appeal for comedy is that mockumentaries are kind of easy, not in a bad way, but being able to have Ron Howard make a narrator joke at any given moment without breaking continuity is a pretty great trick to have up your sleeve. Or throwing in some fake archival footage, or having a character shoot a pained look directly into the camera. It just opens up a lot of possibilities. And I think that's totally right, is because you can, when you're able to break the fourth wall like that in a way that is explained by the narrative, yeah, it's just a whole other range. It's like stage plays where you can have a soliloquy to the audience where it doesn't feel unnatural exactly. I love it, and it's just a whole other layer of meta that you can do.
Yeah, just having, again, all the lore, like when they go into the Nazi vampires, that's adding a whole nother layer of history to it all, and just how old, I keep forgetting, the Nosferatu guy. Justin?
Peter.
Yeah. Just like when it talked about how when he was like, yeah, this giant bat carried me away and ate me, and it was Peter. It's
Yeah.
so funny.
And that was Peter, and they were like best friends. That's so funny.
I think also there's a little bit, it's kind of like letting the air out of the balloon a little bit. There's like because a lot of documentaries deal with, dramatic subject matter. And so I think like a lot of times when you do something like this, like a parody or a satire of that genre, it's kind of you admitting like, yeah, that was kind of silly, and it is kind of nice to laugh about that because I was so caught up in, making a murder or whatever,
Right.
like whatever documentary series you were watching. And so I think that's actually something that I will laugh at despite myself. When I first saw American Vandal, I was like, is this funny? I don't know. It's kind of making fun of another genre, and that guy is still in prison, and that's sad. And so like,
Right.
is this crossing some sort of weird line?
Yeah.
But I think I think when I see a film parody something like Naked Gun parodying like detectives, to me that's more of like making fun of the genre. Whereas when
Right.
I look at mockumentaries, a lot of the time I feel like this is making fun of me. Like this is making fun of more like real type of people, or making fun of something that I'm interested in, that like I see Waiting for Guffman and I realize like, wow, all that time I spent doing theater was pretty stupid. Like there was just a lot of things I took seriously. It's the day of the show, y'all. Like saying that
Yeah.
when I do shows now, like we would say that in college.
Right.
And so it was a nice way to just like, we're all so nervous when it's the day of the show, and somebody like, it's the day of the show, y'all. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, now when I compare what we're doing now to that dumb show that they do in that movie, then it just, okay, now I'm a little more relaxed. Now I just
Right.
realize life is silly, life is trivial. We're all at the end, we're all the butt of some joke somewhere. And so that's kind of what mockumentaries mean for me.
That's sort of in line with
why the humor works.
Something Brittany Fuller said is that mockumentary kind of gives you an emotional guide through the reactions of the characters, and you can react in a more natural way. And that point of view makes us a part of the film crew that's filming the mockumentary instead of just an audience member. It like puts you, it involves you. The ability to break the fourth wall makes you feel like a participant rather than a viewer. And I think that's a really astute point because, yeah, it puts it on your level. It feels real, and then you relate to it, and everyone's acting real, sort of. And yeah, I really think whether it's shining a lens on yourself, like, oh, doing theater like this is very silly because, yeah, like mockumentaries are really successful if you can relate to the subject matter, or in weirder situations like I've never taken a dog to a dog show, and Best in Show, it's a look into a different world that I don't specifically know anything about, but then you look at it and you're like, okay, yeah, this seems like it's probably just a heightened version of how this really is, and these people all seem real, it's I love that about it, that you're a participant. It grounds it. It makes it so much cooler.
Because I think that's an easy topic for mockumentary, is something you would never make a documentary about. Something so innocuous and inane, like there's no, why would you spend that much money and resource, and why would someone say like they're so interested that we got to go do that? Because that's what documentaries can feel like sometimes, when like, I think the best ones are when a lot of the subjects are talking to the interviewers being like, why are you even covering, like, why are you so interested in this? And
right.
Like, I got to find the truth.
Some really good examples of making you a participant. Man Bites Dog is a good, maybe one of the darker mockumentaries. The comedy is so dry a lot of the time because, and it's been a few years since I've seen it, but it's a documentary crew following a serial killer with him
as he's killing people.
and then like as the movie goes on, like the film crew gets more and more embroiled in his crimes and like has to like start cleaning up bodies and stuff. And so yeah, it really puts you in that situation where you're just like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like Incident at Loch Ness, a lesser known movie maybe, is pretty hilarious because it's a behind the scenes making of a Werner Herzog movie that never existed. It was never being made. But he was trying to make a documentary about the Loch Ness Monster and like trying to prove that it's fake. And he's got like this producer that like makes this little robot and like tries to spice things up. But then like things of course go bonkers.
Is Herzog in it?
Herzog is in it. He's like the main character of this movie. It's hilarious. It's so funny.
That sounds great.
Because yeah, it just feels like, and like Herzog is playing it so straight, and he's like, it's making fun of Herzog himself, but he's making fun of himself.
That's so
it's very good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then of course, there's the rockumentary.
Oh yeah.
The mock rockumentary. Samuel Cardwell brings this up and asks, did rock and roll invent the mockumentary? Hard Day's Night, of course, the Ruddles, and then Spinal Tap. He says that that bands they're so bombastic that it leads itself to a mockumentary format, or that is it just because serious rock docs are such a natural target because they're so crazy? And I think it's a little of both. Like rock bands are so eccentric that it's an easy target. Like the real rockumentaries almost feel like comedies sometimes.
Well, I think like if you're doing a documentary on World War II, I might not be interested in that documentary. I might not be a World War II historian, but I'm not going to tell you like World War II ain't nothing. It's World War II is had a profound impact on our planet. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Whereas like it's very easy to be like, that band sucks. Like I just don't care. Like I just don't care about your dumb mockumentary. It's like if you don't like the Foo Fighters, you're not going to like that Foo Fighter mockumentary on Netflix. I like the Foo Fighters. I enjoyed it, and so I think it's so easy to set up some dumb band, something that, again, like, shining the mirror on yourself, like looking at that fandom and being like, oh, okay, that's silly how obsessed, they are with that thing. One of my favorite beats, I can't remember who it was, but someone was, it might have been Ozzy Osbourne, I think, infamously said, like, I hate Spinal Tap. I don't think it's funny at all.
Oh, really?
For obvious reasons, because it's like, none of that's funny. Like, getting lost backstage, that's not funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Too real for them.
That's happened to me.
Like, when they wanted to get rockers involved when it came out, and all the rockers were like, I don't find this movie funny at all. I think that's great.
That's really good. Real quick, a real rockumentary that's pretty crazy is Dig. It's the Dandy Warhols and the Brian Jamestown Massacre, I think. Those two bands.
Whoa.
That's the name of a band. I think that's the name of the band. But yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
I've only seen The Last Waltz.
I haven't seen that one.
Scorsese.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah?
It's like everyone shows up from that era.
You'd like Spinal Tap.
I would.
Well, the thing, just to tip my hat to Spinal Tap, why I hold Spinal Tap in such amazing esteem is like it really like rides the line of mockumentary because like they wrote the music, they're performing all of this music.
It's invented a band.
It's not their real names, and the concerts you see in there were not set up for the reasons they were set up before.
Right.
Everything else is real.
Yeah.
And so it's I hold most mockumentaries to that standard of, and same thing with Mighty Wind, which I love,
Mighty Wind,
which I think I actually might enjoy more than Best in Show.
I love them
because some of
both.
those songs, God, are
They're
so funny, and
good.
it's not the type of thing where it's like I wrote a funny song and put funny lyrics in. It's like, no, I did it. I mean, this is a folk song.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
good folk song.
There are people you could play this to that would not get the joke. They would be like, oh, it's a catchy tune. And you're like, yeah, but if you really listen to the lyrics and understand the context of like
That's wild.
what they're saying, and there's so many different bands in Mighty Wind, you know, different styles.
Yeah,
There's like the and if you're familiar with that genre and like the
love
actual
Mighty
bands that
Wind.
they're making fun of, but and same thing where it's like if you see like there's one band that's like the family band where like they're all together, all playing their instruments, and like they're all playing all of those instruments, and they all got together independently. And I can imagine working with a bunch of actors over years. That was pretty fun where they all splinter off into different groups. And like Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy are like, all right, later, and then show up with like these 4 or 5 hilarious songs.
Amazing, beautiful, moving songs. Witches in Nature's Colors. Wink. I love that movie. I mean, Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, A Mighty Wind, for me, like, Best in Show and A Mighty Wind might be my favorite, but they're all, like, so perfect to me. I love them. That brings up a good point, though, with Spinal Tap, and our next question is talking about the difference between dry and bombastic, crazy humor, because mockumentaries really ride the line. Documentary Now is a great example of, like, some episodes like Globesman, which is a take on Salesman, or the Bunker one, they're so dry that I haven't seen the source material and I didn't even know what was supposed to be a joke and what was just straight up. Like, it's so dry that I didn't even know if it was a comedy or not. And like other episodes like Drones, like you don't have to watch any Vice stuff to just be like, that's hilarious. Why do you have two copies of Anger Management?
It so rides on the line because like they get, I mean, not to spoil, but like there's death in that episode, and it's like, and it's so severe, but it's so hilarious. Like that's arguably the funniest joke in that whole episode. And what a horrible, horrific thing to think about. You know, it's like getting shot, or seeing that happen. Like, if anyone would actually be killed and someone were to tape that on news or documentary, like, they wouldn't show that footage or anything. And so, and I think that is actually an interesting question. And actually one thing that I think you need to remember when you're making a mockumentary is, like there was one line in one of the Documentary Now episodes where some guy said something and someone corrected him and he said, oh, wait, cut that part out. And they obviously didn't.
Right.
And so then the world of your mockumentary starts to shake a little bit. Like the foundation starts to loosen for me, where you're like, okay, well, that character wouldn't want that in. And so what reality are we in right now? Where like you want to make sure not to like shatter that illusion, that you are still creating something for the reason that you set out to do it.
Yeah. Maybe
stick to the purpose. Because I think if it's not clear why you're doing it, American Vandal is a really great purpose. Like they really said, like in a This American Life kind of way. Like, I am this journalist. I'm doing this for this reason.
Okay,
Let's go out and achieve that goal.
Yeah, it's like kind of doing a serial or making a murderer kind of thing. A Documentary Now is a really interesting case because every episode is so wildly different. I think some episodes are much more successful than others. I mean, Parker Gale's Location is Everything, One Likes Rice and Chicken. They're so good.
So it's a mockumentary show?
Yeah.
Documentary Now.
But every episode's
it's on IFC.
a different type.
Seasons 1 and 2 are on Netflix.
Nice.
It's worth checking out.
Cool.
I sent you like a weird list, but like.
But I love how fast you did it.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, I've only seen the Grey Gardens one because Grey Gardens
Sandy
itself
Passage,
is a comedy, man. If everyone wants, that's borderline mockumentary, because it's one thing, if you're going to shoot some interesting stuff, but like those cameramen shooting this were like, what movie is this going to be, man? Like what on earth am I getting? And I was like, hey, Ian, what are some other good episodes? And I just get this list of like, well, there's this, in this order.
Yeah, I was like, in this order, Wild Night's Rice and Chicken, Parker Gale's Location is Everything, probably
Drones.
Sandy Passage, then Drones, and then maybe Canuck Uncovered, and then Final Transmission, and then, I love that.
ranked.
I mean, I didn't say like 4 episodes, but like, yeah, it's a great show. And, but even within itself, like consistency, the Final Transmission episode departs from, like, the first time I watched it, it departs from its kind of parent that it's satirizing. It's doing Stop Making Sense by the Talking Heads, which is great. But this has Talking Head, moments in it where they like go and do interviews, and then like it breaks format a couple other ways. Like Fred Armisen does like a very spot on Tom Waits in the middle of it for kind of no reason, just other than to do it. And it's still funny, but it like breaks from the format of Stop Making Sense a lot. But I still think it's a success. But yeah, some of the episodes are way more bombastic than others. Parker Gale's Location is Everything. It's doing Spalding Gray's Swimming to Cambodia, which I've never seen, which I think was directed by Jonathan Demme, which is funny because they use the same fake director for that episode as they do on the Stop Making Sense episode, which is also directed by Jonathan Demme.
Dude, I love Jonathan Demme.
Yeah, the Stop Making Sense is Jonathan Demme as well. And so it's just like, I see what you did there. Harrison Renzi, that is the fake director, they use them both. Anyway, but Parker Gale's Location is Everything is a monologue, and just the character is so insane, and the comedy is, there are some like actual just jokes in that episode, like hard jokes. And it still works because it fits the format. Morgan Mohala says that I think that the mockumentary format is acceptable in either case, dry or wild, but execution of the dry format is usually hit or miss. When it's too close to realism or becomes too mundane, and maybe the hardships of the characters kill the comedy. On the other hand, something mundane and wacky situations like Parks and Rec is pretty entertaining. Or like in the situation of What We Do in the Shadows, the mundane situation of having a frustrating roommate gets turned on its head because they're all vampires, out of touch with the modern world. And I think that's true. Like, again, it's just heightening realistic moments. Mm-hmm. And
when people die, you feel it.
Right.
When the cameraman goes down, it's like that guy just died. It pulled me in more than like a feature film or something. It had higher stakes, because it still felt it. They made it feel real.
Brittany Fuller brings up that the audience, it's most successful when the audience is in on the joke. She suggests, think of when a relative shares an article from The Onion on Facebook and they think it's real. Like, they don't know. And so, like, if you're watching a mockumentary and you don't know that you're watching a mockumentary, it's a very interesting thing, because you could just think, like, wow, these people are crazy. Yeah. Like, oh, this is very strange,
Well, the opening of Documentary Now, every time makes me think I'm watching the wrong thing, because it's totally legit. It's like a really good theme and like really nice graphics, and it's like, oh, I'm into this, and Helen Mirren stops out. Helen Mirren. But I think one thing that I think is really, really important is you have to have really good actors.
Yes.
And I think that's one thing that Documentary Now does really well, is they fill in a lot of these side characters.
Yeah.
And as somebody who likes forensic files, my favorite are these weird chemists, some guy with like some crazy looking mustache is just like, well, when I brought into the case, and I'm just like, who is that guy? Imagine like his 9 to 5 and like, what's he like on Thanksgiving dinner? Like, I just love these really interesting people. And I think I think sometimes when people make these, because they're easy to make, and a lot of times you'll see something done on a shoestring budget, and the tendency is like, oh, I got my friend Bill who does that impersonation that's so funny, and you bring him in and like, yeah, he's funny, but he's not as grounded as everybody else, and man, he just ruined the movie. Like that one thing.
And it's a very kind of like tenuous tapestry of things, because the one thing can kind of unweave the whole thing.
I don't know why it reminds me of this, but this is like just another weird thing in movies that like I've always discovered. Why is every newscaster and every drama terrible? Why is every time that it goes to the news like the next day and it's like, I'm reporter blah, it's like, why do I never believe that person ever?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's only like 2% of like actor playing reporter in fake news scene in an actual drama hasn't completely pulled me out of the movie.
My favorite is when in The Game, the David Fincher movie, they use now I can't remember his name, but they use
that actual guy,
like famous newscaster. Very cool.
Hacked.
Yeah. So what kind of challenges does the documentary style offer for comedy? Do you think that we've talked about how it makes it a lot easier in some respects. Does it make anything harder, do you think?
Realism.
Depends on the subject matter, I guess. If you're talking about murder, or real life issues, kind of being insensitive, I guess. Because you're hitting closer to home. It's presenting it in a realistic way rather than, you're watching a movie for entertainment. It's like just a different feeling.
And I think kind of along those lines too, if it's not, and I can't think of a specific example of this, so maybe it just hasn't happened, but it's a risk, I think, is that you said earlier that it feels like it's like, oh yeah, it's poking fun at like, oh, this is silly. Like, I used to be like that. That's funny. And I do think that you run the risk of being hurtful, like making fun of people instead of. That's why the Christopher Guest movies, I think, are very successful because, yeah, these are weird people who are really obsessed with a thing, but it's not making fun of these people. Yeah. It's just showing you what these people are into.
I was surprised there were a couple sexual orientation jokes in What We Do in the Shadows. There were like two of them. And I was like, and then I looked at the date. I was like, 2014, like still, Because we talk about, Ian and I always talk about how shows in the early 2000s at night, like boy. I've been rewatching The OC randomly because I love Ben McKenzie. But it's just like the sexual orientation jokes, like a dime a dozen,
Friends is the worst.
And Friends, and it's like even in What We Do in the Shadows, they dropped a couple, and I was like, when are we going to stop with that?
Well, in What We Do in the Shadows, if I'm remembering correctly, it is interesting too because it's the vampire saying that stuff, right?
It was the werewolf to the vampire.
Okay.
He calls him like Captain.
Yeah. And I think who knows if it's a cultural difference thing and like.
Yeah.
It is funny in What We Do in the Shadows specifically because, like, these vampires are so out of touch. Like, when Stu shows them cameras, like video cameras, they're like, I could see myself. The fact that they dried portraits of each other is so funny.
And they watch the sunsets on YouTube.
Right. And they're crying. Yeah. Like, but, like, that's really touching and interesting to me. And also because they're so out of touch. Like, a lot of their, like, phrasing and mental, like, their thoughts are very outdated, which is interesting.
Because they're rooted in their character. That's why they keep going back to. Anytime there's a lull or anytime they're confused or anything, they just go back to who they are, what their character would do in that situation. And then after the fact, like, I think it's good if you're an actor in one of these movies, when you're done, it's like they yell cut, everyone laughs. There's kind of that tension in the room of like, okay, all right, that was really silly. And then as an actor, like, I think if you're like, this one moment was good, I like that, the scene probably didn't go well. Whereas like if you're an actor kind of walking up being like, I don't know, I was so in it. I don't even know what was good, and then leave it up to the directors and the producers and like people outside of it being like, no, I know what the magic was, and I think that's one of the big challenges. Like you talked about, what's difficult is, it's really hard to get a final script that you're okay with to make dialogue seem really natural. You always kind of want to add a little element of improv, like when you get to a set. But at least when you're done, it's like, okay, we got to get these 2 lines. Now we're done with that shot. Whereas if you're just kind of making everything up, I can imagine it's really tricky to be like, should we move on? Are we good here, do we think? Like, did we get everything that's good in this one area?
That makes me think, I hadn't thought of this until right now, but that makes me think about Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's kind of a mockumentary of Larry David, because it's set in real life, kind of.
Oh my
they
God.
show up with an outline, not necessarily a scene. It's just we have to get here, and then they just do it.
There's a lot of weird...
best joke in the best one.
There's a lot of TV shows that are kind of riding the line. Like Modern Family, I guess, is a mockumentary, but they never really address the crew. And I think that's something actually...
But they do talking head interview stuff, so it's like, who knows?
It's interesting, actually, how the Christopher Guest's films have evolved, because Spinal Tap was directed by Rob Reiner, who's featured very prominently in the film, and Marty DeBerge, I think is his name. Like, he casts himself as a different character, but he definitely puts himself in it a lot, whereas like Guffman, not so much. Like the filmmakers are pretty outside of it.
That was directed by Christopher Guest.
Right.
Guffman, yeah.
But it's just interesting that he didn't put himself in as a director, didn't really cast anybody in that role.
He's playing
and all the ones since, it's really been those characters that are the leads.
Yeah,
and same thing in
filmmaking aspect.
And Shadows, like they don't stick out too much. They address them, but like we don't know them by name. Like they're not necessarily characters.
Something we're gonna get into a little later, but we can shove it in now, is found footage kind of aspects. And What We Do in the Shadows is a horror comedy, and found footage. I think Brittany said this. Yeah, Brittany Fuller said that horror. It's like the horror analog of mockumentaries, found footage, and like some of the crew gets killed by werewolves in this movie, and the camera falls to the ground and you see like screaming.
Yeah.
And, so like there is an aspect of that where it's like, found footage is a documentary that didn't get made, I think is what they said. And like, it's just an interesting kind of take on it. Yeah, it is interesting the degree to how much the filmmaking itself is a focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it comes to actually making these movies, a lot of it is made in the editing room. It's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, how filmmaking is a focus of Spinal Tap and not of, I don't think, any of the other, like there aren't any like hard like, oh, the camera just like hit someone like accidentally, like jokes like that in any of the other Christopher Guest movies. Definitely we've talked about how it opens up all kinds of new possibilities. Are there any other favorite things that you have about mockumentaries that we haven't touched upon?
It's just weird. Guest is just such a magician, man. I just don't know how he does it. Like
he disappears.
And I think I couldn't finish. For your consideration. I think that was the bottom of the barrel. I think with his offerings, and I think they've kind of fallen off. Like love Spinal Tap, Guffman's my second favorite, and then probably Mighty Wind, and then so like I think he's kind of gotten more generic as he's gone on. And there's a little bit of sameness. Like one thing I like is he'll shake people up. That was my favorite thing about Mighty Wind, that he almost forcibly like separated people that had done stuff previously together.
Sure.
And so like really, having like Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara together was like, whoa. If you look at like Best in Show, which was right before that was like very different. But at the same time, like when you keep working with the same actors, if you're trying to achieve this realism, it kind of takes you out of it. Going into Mascots now, it's like I've seen these actors do this bit so many times.
Right. Is that one
like
out
I
yet?
don't know. Oh, Netflix, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I never
And
watched that one.
oh god, who's in that is the nerd from they're all nerds, but the guy, the super nerd from Silicon Valley, the guy who. The serious guy, the guy who actually runs the business, who's just very straight laced. Like I can't think of
Verizon guy.
Yeah, Middleditch. I think.
No, not the main guy. The guy who is like proudly wears the jacket when they get it, and it's like doesn't get the joke most of the time.
Yeah.
Love him.
The slicked hair guy.
Yeah. He it's so perfect for that type of genre.
yeah.
Like, I think some actors like Jane Lynch and so like some actors like definitely like very easily take to that.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there that he the stuff that he's done I think is really great.
I like Family Tree. Did you see that? That was his HBO, I think.
I watched a couple episodes of that. Yeah.
That one was almost more kind of touching. It was more just emotional than comedic. It's more soft comedy, but it's funny. It's got some good moments in it.
And I think if you're gonna bring people in. I think the more it's apparent the homework that they did, not only about their characters and setting up the real world, because like actors love to do that. They love to think of the backstory for years and years and years and years. But like your contribution to your craft, if you're like playing a dancer or artist or something, if it's like clear you're faking it, even like in a funny way, like it kind of takes me out of it. Whereas I can really tell like, oh, you actually put a lot of effort into representing yourself, whether it's done intentionally for comedic purposes or not. I respect that more, and it makes it more real.
That's something I really love about this format, mockumentaries, is like, I mean, again, in Waiting for Guffman, it's funny because I kind of feel a different way about it. I think like for me, I think it probably goes Best in Show is his best, Mighty Wind is like tied maybe, and then Waiting for Guffman and then Spinal Tap. But they're all just they're different, so it's whatever. But like the I think of Parker Posey playing a Dairy Queen employee in Waiting for Guffman and just chewing that gum and talking about blizzards.
Every time people talk about Blizzard, in the back of my head, it's like, I want like a non-fat, low-fat Blizzard. Every time. It's just in the back, just back there, like chewing away.
And I grew up in the Midwest, which is not exactly the same demographic or like geographical location as that movie is set in, because it's Missouri. I don't remember where it is, but it just, that feeling, that person, I'm like, yep, I know that person. And it's so funny because her talking about blizzards has nothing to do with the movie, but it's such a strong and specific character beat.
Yeah.
That it's so powerful, and you just get it immediately. You're like, all right, yep, that's who you are. And every character in the Christopher Guest movie is like that, where it's like you immediately get it.
But it doesn't feel like Parker Posey chasing the joke.
Right,
it feels like her settling into her character.
They're playing. That's I think the success is they're playing it so realistically. It's just
she might not have thought, man, that was funny when I just did it in the moment. And I think one of the other things too that upon seeing Waiting for Guffman like 40 times, the one thing that I really appreciate, and the one thing that smartly Christopher Guest does, is there's always like a goal. So like in Spinal Tap, there's this tour that they're doing, so they got to finish the tour. In Guffman, there's the show that they're putting on, Best in Show. There's the dog show. So there's always like something they're building up toward that is a fun end. But what's so great about Guffman is there's a lot of these funny moments in rehearsal, and if you pay attention, every single time they're rehearsing something, that's the thing. So like when they're doing like the stool song, there's a whole bit that has nothing to do with the stool song. But if you look at like, the actors in the background doing choreography, they're doing the choreography. Like when you actually see the show at the end, like that's the thing. And so that just helps so much, like the realism and like seeing all that stuff come together.
Yeah.
That like when they're arguing over something on the show, you got to be in the show, or you see like, him at the end, spoilers, like where Corky's got to fill in for this like super hot guy.
Right.
So you have this like super big buff masculine dude that's going to play this role, and then like Corky comes in at the end to play him instead, and then you're imagining the other guy in this supposedly written, this really romantic scene written for him, and this, oh God, it's on so many levels.
Yeah.
A penny for your thoughts.
Oh, well, and these movies, they're like my family, like we all just watch these to pieces, but like we quote them all the time. Like anytime anyone leaves, it's like, it's either like have fun storming the castle from Princess Bride, or if you get hungry, eat something. If you get tired, pull over. Like who's going to catch a big fish? Like, or we just sit naming nuts forever. Like Best in Show, we just quote it all the time. And they just, I don't know, I love these movies so
Corky,
much.
we love you and we want you to live. That's one. Day of the Show, I mean, just, again, theater, that was canon. Like you just said that.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's so many of these films you haven't seen, Hubert, but I love it.
Any of
I love it.
Hubert's
I love strolling into a film discussion, completely trouncing Hubert's effort. Finally.
None.
Finally, you skipped something.
Zero.
You maniac.
I've seen
zero. Watch the only one this morning.
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows.
It was amazing.
I think it can be really easy to be like, okay, we got the theme, we got the characters, let's do it.
Right.
And I just think there's never enough homework you can do on something like this to really make everything believable.
Yeah.
If you have somebody in the background, if you have to bring in like a group of people for a scene, where like there's a crowd and we're performing for them, like they got to be in on the joke too. Like everybody's got to be on their best behavior and constantly grounded.
Always wanted to make a mockumentary. And I just haven't come up with that
idea.
And
but I mean, and this is to bring Huber into it. I mean, like you've been in mockumentaries, like we do. You do bits on Huber Syndrome, or we do bets, and like
Bossman.
I love that. I love like looking into another actor's eyes and just feeling that walking on the tightrope of like, can we do it? Can we stay into it? Can I not even smirk? Like. The best Saturday Night Live sketches have some dude in the back who's like, I can't. It's so funny. And it's like in all of my favorite mockumentaries, like they managed to do it. Like you can tell. And man, like that person's in front of the camera, especially in all those Documentary Now scenes. Man, and what was the eyes?
The eye doesn't lie.
The eye doesn't lie. Some of those Armistead
thin
scenes,
blue
man, when
long
he's
one.
in the prison, I can just see I can just feel the crew behind the camera, like
just be like,
like just don't make a sound. Like I gotta leave the room, man. This is too much.
Dominic Barlow brings up, we should talk about Borat.
Oh sure. Which
Borat.
Is it
Does
a
that
documentary?
count? I've seen some Borat.
That's a documentary, man.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, this is a long comment, so I'll just kind of like paraphrase. But they were bringing up that it's sort of like predates the current like YouTube like prankster dare based stuff, which I don't like. And like,
What was hers though? With Jackass?
The Jackass.
Yeah. But that kind of thing where I think that this kind of stuff is less mockumentary and more like prank, like shock show. Like Jackass is a good point where it's like unwitting participants are being made the victim.
Punked.
Right.
They're being punked, and like
Candid camera.
It's not. I don't like it, but like
Well,
it
but,
is
like,
interesting, and also it's just like. It's the highest grossing, if it does count as a mockumentary, it's the highest grossing mockumentary that's
Cultural
ever been
phenomenon.
made.
I remember when it came out. Everyone saw it.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking
And
about
Bruno
Borat.
to a much lesser extent, but like Borat, it's just like it crushed everything, and everyone was talking about it.
Yeah. Right place, right time.
Right. And it's just a whole other animal.
I mean, I think that's a documentary. I mean, because I think when
it's Sacha Baron Cohen doing a thing.
I personally enjoy Jackass just because
I love
Jackass is the kind of thing for me where Jackass is like sports. It's like most of it's kind of dull, but man, when it's good, like when it hits, and when you see, and I have so much respect for Johnny Knoxville because like even after he became a huge star, certainly out of that group, other than like Steve-O, like really like elevated beyond like now I'm in Men in Black 2,
right?
And I'm doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
He still was put himself at the forefront of like the riot shotgun to the stomach.
He would always do like the craziest
ones.
ones.
So that I like that he's like, we're gonna shoot a rocket over that lake. Let's talk it on it, sure. And so I really respect. I think the boxing glove in the movies, the boxing glove through the. Did you ever see that one?
I don't remember.
They put a sign up that's like, "Hey, jackass! The last time you stayed in this hotel, you hooked up with my friend," and she said, "Well," and the writing gets smaller and smaller on the piece of paper, and so they lean in to look at it, and there's a hydraulic boxing glove on the other side of the wall. And they get each guy in succession. So they prank Bam at the beginning, and Bam's like, "That's so good." And then it fades to black, fades up, and then Steve-O comes in, and Bam's like, "Hey, Steve-O, read the sign." And then Steve-O gets hit, and then Steve-O's like, "Hey, wee man, read the," and it's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, getting back to Borat, like it's. Unlike that Jackass, where it's like we're just gonna do 1,000 things, we'll pick the 50 that were the funniest.
Well, and that's reality TV.
But there's no like theme going through it. Where Borat definitely has a theme.
It's a character.
It's just this kind of like this blind nationalism. You know, this kind of like saying something on camera and not realizing really what you're saying or what context it's being placed in. And I think as far as a documentary is concerned, like that was incredibly poignant. Like there were scenes in that I learned more or thought were as affecting as seeing a regular documentary.
Well, it's interesting too because it's kind of like it's a documentary except one person is doing a mockumentary. Sacha Baron Cohen is in a mockumentary and everyone else is in a documentary or in a reality TV show. And it's a whole other experience. It's very interesting.
But even if you're a host, again, even if you take the role of putting yourself into your documentary,
You're right.
I'm this filmmaker, I want to make
Werner
this movie
Herzog,
because I have an emotional attachment to it, or I've got a big ego. You are still putting on a character,
right?
Like you're like, I'm putting myself forward. There's a way I want myself to look as a filmmaker in this. So again, it's a fine line, between like the character he's putting on for the desired effect. I think is just amped up instead of like created versus other actual.
Because Shadows to me still felt like a feature film, in a way, you know, like it was because I've seen so many found footage horror movies, you know, I still watched it as a feature because all the characters were so well realized. They had all the lore, they had all the rules, there was a progression to it, whereas like you were saying about Borat, you know, it's a weird situation where he's doing something else, but everyone else is like not in on the joke.
Well, and I think Borat feels more reality TV than mockumentaries. Mockumentaries feel like movies to me, at least.
Yeah.
Like, and definitely, and I mean, you see it a lot in documentary now, where they're like evoking specific different shooting styles. Like The Eye Doesn't Lie looks very much like like they're talking into the Interrotron. Like that is the Thin Blue Line, you know, or whatever. But like, and Sandy Passage is like shot real crappy because it like looks like, you know, not crappy, but like, yeah.
And I think production value has a lot to do with it. I think it's very easy to get good actors, good concept, not have the production value to match the thing you're parodying, and then it all kind of falls apart, unfortunately.
That's the thing. Mockumentaries require a lot of discipline, I think. Is that because you go in thinking like, hey, it'll be super easy. Let's throw together a mockumentary. Haha. Like we don't even have to light it. And it's like, it's harder. Like you've got to be very specific with many different things.
Anytime you're pulling resources from one part of a production, you're lumping it onto something else.
Right.
And basically the homework, like the pre-preparation thematically going into it now triples. And you have to just know, like you can't, as an actor, I can't throw to a director and have them be like, well, I don't know. I got to know, like, nope, that's out of character. Like, no, that wouldn't work. I have to be able to wrangle the craziness.
When he bites the girl's neck in the beginning and it sprays everywhere, he's like hits the artery. But then they double down on it for like a second when they open the door like 10, 15 minutes later and he's in the back of the room like,
yeah.
And it's like, you're talking about discipline. It's like they could have easily overdone this or done it again, you know? Like it's just or like they set it up and then they like have the quick little payoff with the other one.
Right. I love, when he's putting down newspapers, like asking her questions and he's like, all right. Well, it's really funny too because that moment is like, because they seem like normal people and you don't think that they'd be capable of being vampires and killing people,
Yeah.
and then it's just
Right.
like, oh no, wait, yeah, they're also just vampires. And I love that What We Do in the Shadows goes there. Like, it doesn't shy away from just like brutal violence.
Yeah.
like
Like near the end, he has a line about like some people say we have no feeling in our heart. He's like, but I think there's a little something there.
yeah.
You need to be scared of them a little bit,
Right.
Just a little bit, and I
Right.
think they do that well enough.
Yeah.
That they do, when they stalk people, and it can be an unsettling movie at parts, and so it's,
Like on
it's
the
that
street,
balance.
the
Yeah.
woman is like
Right.
eating her
Eating
ex
that
or
guy.
something. and
I
she's
really
like,
liked the two little girls who were made vampires as kids, and they stalked
dude,
perverts.
that one scene where she like chokes
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
bounce on
Well,
him.
and then it's like these little girls, but they're like 200 years old, and like Jermaine Clement's like getting some perverts tonight.
Yeah,
They're like,
great line.
It's just like everyone's doing it. Also, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Wonderful movie. But yeah. Oh man, What We Do in the Shadows is so good.
I can't believe they're doing a sequel. That like made my
Yeah.
day.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready for more.
I'm excited. Basically, for next month, we're probably gonna do Christmas movies. We couldn't think of a mockumentary that specifically addressed Christmas, but I mean, just watch any of the Christopher Guest ones. This is Spinal Tap. Watch any documentary now, and we'll come in fresh. Die Hard.
Die Hard.
We're gonna talk about Die Hard next
Die
month.
Hard.
Christmas movies.
Die Hard, baby. Favorite action movie of all time.
Oh yeah,
Because I don't count Aliens
Is
as really
3
an action movie.
yeah. It's
I
like
don't know, it's
Shame on
tough.
you. Shame on you.
There's
Aliens.
like
Aliens
three-
is an
It's most-
action
It's
movie.
most certainly an action film.
Like Alien is a suspense sci-fi
Yeah.
horror
Sure.
thriller. Perfect,
Only like
perfect
Three
film.
action scenes though.
What? You gotta control.
2.5 hour movie.
Game
The-
over,
the,
man.
The flying down to the planet is an action scene,
Yeah,
man.
everything's
Landing
action.
that thing.
You're right.
and
You're right.
Somebody wake up.
They
Hicks.
land a
right.
jet and
It's
a
an
tank
action
rolls
movie.
out of it, and that's not an action sequence. You're out of control.
So yeah, for we'll do Christmas
Right.
next
Your
month,
element.
and then we'll do probably action movies.
I don't like genres.
Can we talk about American Vandal just for a hot second?
Oh, right. I
I
forgot.
kind of alluded to it, but we
Yeah.
never really got into it. And I had a lot of people recommend it, and
Right.
I saw the trailer and was like, I don't know if I really want to invest in that. It's 8 episodes.
Sure.
So it's longer. I think so. Yeah, I think about
Okay.
half an hour each. So it's longer than your average movie. And so they really invest in it. And when I watched the first episode, I was like, boy, this for like 8 episodes. And it I think it might go a little bit too far in trying to actually make like a poignant story. But when it ends, it distances itself from the comedy pretty far. Like it always is kind of returning to that. Like it's about supposedly someone who spray painted a bunch of dicks on a.
Yeah.
I say dicks because that's the word they use over and over and over and over and over again. I mean that's definitely. A lot of the humor there comes from the seriousness. Any of the the administration of the school, like they're all dead serious, and so it's funny how if you just you take something like making a murder, not make it a murder, make it penises,
Right.
and then just have that be the gag running through the whole
Faculty
thing.
Vehicles, yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that like we're talking about the difficulties of producing one of these films, but I think one of the things obviously that you get that's hard to get in a comedy is there's a gag going the whole time. Like
Right.
if you do it right, like you're always kind of chuckling through the
Right.
whole film.
Yeah.
You know, you're like there's always something laced with silliness, and it's really interesting, kind of like doing like the not like the Muppet Babies, but just basically taking like the whole This American Life attitude and just like taking like 20 years off of it and putting all these kids in like junior high school, but then approach it with the same amount of seriousness, to the point where you can see kind of behind the scenes and them doing stuff. So where you can add. I remember the one line in the trailer that jumped out as he just like one of the lead documentarians, dead serious, is like, I just don't think ball hair is going to get us there. I think we need more. Like so it's just like that. How serious they'll specifically talk about, like, see, your ball hairs are different than these ball hairs. But it's amazing how dynamite the cast is, like how really, really great those kids are, especially the lead, how he just rides that line of, almost laughing, just making a caricature and not actually making an interesting character. And there are definite points in that film where they completely take the gloves off and they're like, this is still funny. This is still, the subject matter is still funny, but like, this is pretty real right here.
Right,
This is like, whether we're talking about relationships, the two leads have like been dating forever since they've been kids. And so they got a lot of baggage, and it's really, really interesting how easy they are to adjust tonally. And what really messes with your brain is, I haven't done my research on it, but you get the vibe that it's kind of like a Broken Lizard kind of a thing. The guys who did Super Troopers, where, these people have been around for a while. This is not the first rodeo of this cast.
Right.
Maybe like some of the adults brought in after the fact, but definitely the leads. Like these kids have worked together before. And what's super trippy is they show like old footage. Like they're like, oh yeah, we've been making stupid YouTube videos forever, and they show them as kids making stupid YouTube videos. And so you're like, wait, what? Like, did you do some crazy Kurt Russell Guardians 2 CG to make this work, or like? And like showing pictures of them at prom in high school, and like it's them, and so like that was really interesting and effective, because that's so tough. Even in like, I hate that moment in like a really good drama that you're so into, and it's like, here's a picture of me in the war, and the Photoshop's like, oh god, it's so bad, and you're like, no, why'd you show it? Why'd you do it? And so for it to be grounded in that way. And especially how the whole thing wraps up. Like if you're like, oh, I got into it, but I didn't finish it. Like, wrap it up. Like I thought it was fascinating, kind of what they touched on.
Cool.
Near the end of that. And when it first started, like the specifically the opening credits are like a direct parody of Making a Murderer. It's like the same like long drum, like the violin and like black and white and the train tracks and and so like, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth when I first started it, because I'm like, I mean, again, that guy's in jail right now. This is a very unfortunate story. Spoiler. I would love to get to the bottom of what happened to this guy, but by the end of it, it's just very truthful, and they worked really hard. It's all kids too. I'm just like, what showrunners came in and steered this, or did they just kind of let these kids, do the whole thing? Because it's very, very well done, and it's a tough thing. That balance is very hard between drama and comedy.
There's another Fred Armisen, Portlandia, but they do a bit where it's a band that makes songs for title sequences. And they actually like got the license to play like the True Blood theme, the Justified theme, the True Detective theme,
Nice.
And it's pretty funny because it's all like, oh, we got a twang guitar, we got some violins, And there's one part where he's like, they came to us and they were like, we need an 11-second song, and we were like, okay. And then it cuts to them like as a band on stage playing the Breaking Bad theme song. It's pretty funny. Anyway, check that out. All right, well, thanks, guys. Watch Die Hard. Watch all the Christopher Guest stuff. Just watch everything.
Watch it all.
Great.
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. Maverick.
Vacation, of course. You can't.
Sure.
You can't go through December without.
Yeah. Maverick's not Christmas. I just like it. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, we're gonna do not Christmas movies.
If you haven't watched It's a Wonderful Life,
right?
It's cliche.
Whatever.
Check it out though. Brings me to tears every time.
We're not gonna talk about it.
Jimmy Stewart.
My mouse bleeding.
I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
The movie's incredible.
Oh, your money's in Fred's house and Jake's house. Oh. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Anyway, Home Alone.
Home Alone, that counts.
Turtle Doves.
Home Alone.
All right.
Christmas Story. What was it?
That movie makes me really depressed.
I don't think I've seen it.
It's depressing.
I haven't seen that one. It's a little blonde kid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you might not like it later in life. Like, I like it because I've seen it 5 billion times.
I watched it when I was a kid, and I was just like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
It makes me sad.
There's some mean kids in that.
Yeah.
Yellow
The snowman makes me sad.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Which is it?
It's meant to.
What's his name?
I don't know.
The children, the cartoon, the snowman.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
What, Charlie Brown?
No.
The Snowman. It's called the Snowman.
It's called the Snow.
Oh, it's the...
Oh, like the Rudolph stop motion shorts?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the snowman's name?
Frosty.
Frosty, the Frosty, damn it. Frosty
I thought you were talking about the Snowman.
It was like that Michael Keaton movie?
No.
Oh, my God.
You know what I'm talking about.
Frosty the Snowman.
You're the man. I'm the snowman.
Wrecked me as a kid.
Yeah.
All right. The wheels have fallen off the car. See you next month. Bye.